Now, when it
Yeah.
comes to your why,
Hmm.
it's great that you're helping. I would love to hear, how did you get to this space as far as
Yeah.
connecting? I know that you worked in HR, but what was your why when it came to starting this whole organization?
Yeah. So a few things there, but when I had my first child many years ago, I immediately, I immediately felt some conflict from a values perspective. So
Okay.
let me tell you why. I always wanted to work. I didn't dream of being a stay-at-home mom. Just wasn't that wasn't for me. But I don't know if my values shifted or if I just became more aware of them and more intentional with them. But after I had my first child, I immediately knew that my work had to have meaning, because if I was going to leave my child to go to work, which again I wanted to do, but if I was going to do that, I wanted to have meaning in what I was doing. I wanted that purpose. And then I wanted flexibility. And that was really important to me. And I became hyper aware of anytime I felt flexibility was not available in a career. And so those are just
It was
two.
like a non-negotiable for you.
Yes, and it was those were two things that really changed for me or were highlighted for me when I had my first child. And I knew that if I wanted those things, I had to ask for them and I had to be really intentional in my own career. And so that changed things for me. Before I had a good career, I did work for a nonprofit. There was meaning involved, but I became much more intentional about my particular role within that organization and asking for the things that I wanted. Now, I did sometimes get told no, right? Because it's not just because you ask doesn't mean you get
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that's information. Yes, no, that's information that you would not have if you did not ask. And then you can take that and say, okay, is this a non negotiable for me? Or is this something that I'm willing to wait on or give up? And once you've identified what your core values are, you can make a better decision.
Like, love it. So, and it's interesting because, like you were mentioning, right, things to tick off, right, or things that are upsetting to you. It was important to be able to make those value choices for your life and align your values with the organization or whatever organization that you're putting together. Because you're right, a lot of times, a lot of women when they become a mom, a lot of things just shift. It's all about
Yeah,
what gives meaning. What was meaningful then may not be the same after a child is born. So
right.
it's interesting that yes, most people, their wives are their kids, or that's when they got a really a bigger picture of what life is to be, right? As a mom, as a employee or employer or a business owner, and you just basically went into those same things that you're sharing with other women of what you've gone through to ensure that you're living the life that you want to live. So that's fantastic. How
Yeah.
would you say, when those who are coming to you and they're working with you, like, what is usually the emotion? Is it shame, guilt of being a mom? They're frustrated. What is happening when a person first comes to you? Usually, how are they feeling?
I think they're curious,
Okay.
but there's also a lot of fear involved. I One of the questions I love to ask is, "What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?" Because the answer to that question is always very different than any career we talked about in any other session when we're talking
Exactly,
about
right?
vision and values. Because we always have this layer, this barrier, right, to prevent failure and to prevent heartbreak. And it's very hard to remove that layer. So when you ask the question, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? You start to pull back those layers. And it doesn't mean that that's going to be the career that you choose, but it opens you up to a different level of vulnerability and a different level of reflection so that you can identify the right career path for you.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure you've asked that question yourself, haven't you?
Of course.
So it's interesting because you're right. We will play safe. A lot of people that I will meet, if there's ever a regret, is they were regretful that they played safe in life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so if there is a time to take that risk, it's now, isn't it? If it wasn't yesterday, it's now. And putting it together with a coach makes it even more effective and actually fast tracking your success, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. A lot of the things that and I tell women this, a lot of the things that I do in my career coaching program, you could do on your own. It's just that
Hmm.
most of us don't. And so to have
We know what we need to do,
that,
right?
right?
Everyone
So to
knows
have,
most people at least, they know what they
yeah,
want to do or how they want to do it or when they want to do it. But a lot of time that accountability, as you're mentioning.
it's true. And even if it's unclear, there's so much available on the internet right now. You could search for the right questions to ask yourself to facilitate a career change. But actually doing the work is easier when it's facilitated. It's easier when you have someone to guide you, to provide that roadmap, and then you're able to sort of just get in the seat and drive, right? So I think it's important to keep that in mind. I will say too, as far as the fear and how to kind of move beyond that, like you said, like the time is now. There are ways to overcome that. There are ways to make it feel a little more safe. And I'll just give an example for me. When I started my business in May, I started my business in a pandemic, and
Most people.
at that point, it was an untested assumption that it would work. And so I was at that time dual pathing. I was building a business and applying for other full time positions because I didn't know for sure that the business would work. And I did a lot of, so that was kind of like a backup plan, right? To say, I can always go back to a full time position if I need to. But then while building the business, I did a lot of informational interviews with people who hire consultants in the area that I wanted to consult in, with other business owners to understand what their experience was like, what they had learned over, the past however many years they've been running a business. I always try to find somebody who's at least a couple steps ahead of me and just say, tell me what you learned. What was your experience like? And so those things help to provide clarity and make it a little bit more safe to then put your energy and your time into exploring that career option.
So you're not, I love the way you mentioned that, dual pathing anymore.
I'm not.
You're focusing is in all the energy is going into building your business. And that's a great idea for those who are listening, to find others who are in that space, paid or non-paid. But a lot of times that will fast track your success, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yes. I
And
ask
def
all of my career coaching clients to do informational interviews and ask questions that are aligned with what they've discovered about their vision and their values and their skill sets, so that they can really feel confident that the career path they choose will align with what they want and need in life.
Yes, especially with moms, the alignment with time. There's a schedule, there's a calendar, is great, but usually most of the time a mom is heading into the space of building her business because she wants that flexible time with her
Mhm.
family, and she wants to place her family before her work.
Yep,
And a lot of
absolutely.
times, if you're in, on the clock, you can't do that. It's work, and then family comes later. And people don't realize it, but when you're at work, and of course, there are those who focus on saying, I don't want to build a business. But of course, most of the people who are listening are those who are in the business space, and
Mhm.
a lot of even the leaders of businesses, which means that their schedule may not be as rigid as 9 to 5.
Mhm.
Sometimes they may be working 6 a.m. to 2, but they can have a little bit more flexibility. But it's all about the positioning of our lives comes from that flexibility, from aligning it with our family, because that's a lot of that's a lot of hours. So if you're working, let's say 8 to 5, that you get by the time you get home 6, and everyone's in bed. If you have young ones, 9,
Mm-hmm.
that's 3 hours a day with your family.
Yep.
There is this it's not a it's not negotiate. You can't negotiate that. It's just 3 hours, because by
Yep.
the time you're on the highway and you get home and it's 6 o'clock, and so let's say you spend at least 30 minutes to do dinner, you're really spending 7 to 9, 2 hours a day.
Yep.
And I know that was one of the reasons why I went toward the entrepreneur world, because the time kept getting shorter and shorter
Yep.
where you could spend with family. And so I wanted to make it God, family, and then any income generating opportunities or inactivities.
Yep.
Before then, it felt like it was income generating activities,
Mm-hmm.
then family, then God, a family. And that part kept switching. And I wanted
Yep.
to align myself, because I kept feeling this disturbance within me that I'm not doing it right and this is not meaningful. And do I really want to do this for the next 20 years? And at the end of the day, when I started asking those, clarifying questions, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it anymore. It was
Yeah.
a change had to happen. So it's great that you're doing what it is that you're doing, because I'm sure there's a lot of employees, those who are leaders, those who are maybe even one type of business trying to change into another type of business. Say, I need someone to help me get some clarity as to what my skill sets are. So this is great that what it is that you're doing. So it's a great purpose driven type of organization to help others really find their way in life, to and then making that income to support their family.
Yeah, thank you. That's the goal. And,
Yeah.
I just love working with women who are at that crossroads, and they feel that inner conflict of like, what I'm doing now isn't what I want to be doing, but I have no idea what else I could do, or if my other ideas would work. I
Mm-hmm.
love working with women at that crossroads because it's such a freeing thing to explore what your options are, and then to
Mm-hmm.
walk through the process and be able to walk away confident that the career path you choose, whether it's a business owner or going into another industry or whatever, the career path you choose is right for you. It's the next right move, right? It might not be
Yeah.
your forever job, because
Exactly.
these days we change quite a bit, right? Um, but it's your next right career path. It's your next right move.